Okay, perfect. So we're at 6:01 and I'm going to call the public board meeting number 966 to order. I would like to start by acknowledging that we are privileged to meet on the unceded and ancestral territory of the Snohomish and St'át'imc nations. And we have an agenda there for your approval. Should it be amended since we brought stuff up to camera? So it'll be an amended agenda. Anyone? Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Ian. All those in favor? And that's carried. I also have 3 sets of minutes for approval.
That the minutes of the board meeting held on June 8th, 2022 be adopted.
Thank you, Rick. Second, Cynthia. All those in favor? And that's carried.
That the summary minutes of the in-camera meeting held on June 8th, 2022 be adopted.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Cynthia. All those in favor? You're a little early there, Ian. Okay, one more.
That the summary minutes of the special in-camera board meeting held on July 13th, 2022 be adopted.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Ian. All those in favor? And carried. So that brings us to our announcements for chairperson's remarks. I have a couple. Just wanted to welcome everyone back, and I hope you enjoyed your summer and were able to take a little bit of downtime. And I'm sure it's been a very busy couple of weeks for you as we get back to school and get kids in classes and teachers in classes. So and then I just wanted to say a couple of things that something I attended over the summer, and I found so much benefit to it. So I went to the Canadian School Board Association conference, the National Trustee Gathering on Indigenous Education. And I found it was great networking for starters, and to talk to representatives from across the country to get an idea of where we are at and the results that we are seeing, and by comparison to others. And we are doing extremely well. In particular, when it comes to the indigenous through an indigenous lens. Part of the conference, we had some amazing keynote speakers from some very progressive communities, indigenous communities, some that have Hutterite colonies as part of their school districts, and that was very interesting. We did a tour of a Hutterite colony, and they have so the teacher there and the teacher assistants are employees of the district. She has been there in particular, I think 15 years or something like that. So it's super interesting in how the dynamic works. And then just seeing how the colony itself operates, which is amazing. That was my first time. We also did a field trip to the Winnuskewin Center, and we had Bridget Laquette. She's an Olympic hockey player, raised in a remote northern community, and to hear her story was so powerful and emotional all at the same time, and encouraging as well. They talked about how Manitoba was trying to amalgamate boards and not have individual school boards, and how they were able to defeat that motion, and why they think that having local governance for our students is important, and the value there. So it was wonderful, and then it's my first time attending one of those conferences, and I would probably jump at the opportunity to attend again. I think it happens annually. And our president for our provincial representation, so the BC School Trustees Association, was acclaimed as the vice chair for the board for the Canadian School Board Association. So that's exciting as well. Is that all I had? We went through our calendar for the upcoming year, I suppose. So we may touch on that a bit more in detail, but one I'll point out is that we have a South Coast branch meeting tomorrow. So hopefully everyone can make that. And I think that's it for me. Any trustee remarks? No. Okay, so then that superintendent's remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, I also want to welcome everyone back and really sincerely welcome all the new students, families, and staff to beautiful district. And a special shout out to our international students joining us this year, and a big thank you to those host families who stepped up to take these students into their homes, and we really want to thank you for that and value the cultural exchange that occurs. We learn just as much from our kids who join us as they do from being here. So I want to give a shout out to that and thank everyone. And of course, well, I thank all schools for how warmly I know they welcomed their kids back this year. We'll just highlight one particular school that I learned that at Statmas, they started off the year in circle and song, and on opening day, students were drummed into the gym to start the week together. Sir Williams sang a welcome song, followed by the Jimmy Jimmy, which I'd like to know more about, as kids were called to each of their classes. To close the week, she sang a blessing over the kids with a paddle song, and a message of working together on the journey in a peaceful way. And I think that's a lovely message for all of us to reflect on as we move on to this school year. And related to that, I'd like to remind everyone that of course we have Truth and Reconciliation as a national day holiday on September 30th, and our district website right at the top of news and events. The top there has lots of really great resources where you can learn more. And I just want to remind everyone that Truth and Reconciliation is everyone's responsibility, and I encourage folks again to reflect on that day and do what they can to further their understanding. And without embarrassing her, I do want to extend publicly a sincere congratulations to Trustee Bickford, who has been acclaimed as school trustee for Area D, and that includes Portal Cove, Furry Creek, Britannia. I think I've covered it, right?
Ring Creek,
right, that beautiful community up in there. There we go. See, I'm not even aware of all the sir. So thank you. And this will be your second term. And of course, best of luck to the incumbent trustees and any trustee candidates out there in the elections coming up October 15th. And finally, obviously breaking news, a reminder that this Monday, the 19th of September, has been declared a federal and provincial holiday to observe the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And a reminder that schools will not be in session that day. And of course, we look forward to welcome everybody back on Tuesday. Thank you very much.
to clarify, is it a stat holiday for all employees?
Oh, I'm sorry. So federally, it's federally regulated employees. And then each provincial government made a determination to make it a stat holiday for government employees, which includes schools. Thank you for the clarification. We're freaking out some of the employers out there with private businesses.
Yes, because I'm already,
Thank you so much.
I'm already aware of debates occurring, so, sorry. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. And our secretary treasurer?
I don't have any opening remarks. I just want to reiterate to the public that if they have any questions or clarification, they can send them to board@sd48.bc.ca, and we will look at the questions at the end of this meeting and try to respond best as we can at that point in time. And if we're unable to answer the question, we'll get back to you following the board meeting at some point.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to our receiving delegations. Do we have anyone from representing the Whistler Secondary Dry Grad Parent Committee? I don't see anyone online.
We will give them a minute or two. I can just inform the public that the Drag Committee from WSS put together a very comprehensive outlining package outlining their plans for grad 2023. And the trustees had an opportunity to take a look at this very comprehensive package, and we're going to have some clarifying questions for the delegation. So if they don't or are unable to appear, maybe we can receive those questions, their suggestion from trustees, and pass them along, and then pass along the responses.
Okay. I guess maybe for the interest of the public, I can clarify that what they're asking for is to become a sanctioned event. So sanctioned by the school district, and then therefore they can use our communication system within the school to reach out to parents and such. And they have, Whistler Secondary in particular has done this for several years now, and they tend to be a fantastic event, very well planned out and very well organized. So with that, I think you were provided all the information ahead of time, and I'm just wondering if any trustees have any questions or concerns. Cynthia?
Something very minor in reading through, they make reference to extending the invitation to what they're calling outside guests. And they may just want to define what an outside guest is. In some years, outside guests, especially during the COVID time, included everyone outside of the grade 12 graduating class, and in other years it was just students who didn't attend WSS. So maybe just to avoid any problems with that, they might want to just put it in the definition.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, just before I make my point, just congratulations to them for getting on this so quickly and so thoroughly. I mean, it's a really good document, and I don't have any significant concerns, and I'm delighted that their planning is going ahead so early. Under the student parent communication plan, the last bullet says that parents will be asked not to drink at the venue during the grad event. I think that could be worded a little stronger than asked to. And similarly, the second half of that statement, and will be encouraged not to provide the students with intoxicants during the day prior to the event. I just think that it should read something like will be instructed not to, or that, you know, such action is prohibited for participants in this event. I just think based on some unfortunate incidents from the admittedly somewhat distant past now, it's a good idea to make those things really clear and leave no ambiguity whatsoever about the district's expectations and the committee's expectations. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else? So moving forward from here, I think they were hoping that to get a approval today, if possible, as they want to jump on their fundraisers. In past, I know we have done we constructed a motion with a qualifier in there that they work with staff at the school, like with the principal or VP, to ensure that all questions are answered and concerns addressed. So is that's fair to say that that's prior?
Yeah, that's been our practice.
Our practice?
In the past. So that could be something that the board consider, bring something forward, to do a conditional approval, pending, satisfaction of concerns addressed.
Yeah.
Either by or, by staff.
I have a proposed motion, if that would be helpful.
Not very much so.
That the, I'm quite willing to receive suggestions for improving it, by the way. The board approves the plan as presented contingent upon final perusal and approval of both school and district staff.
That sounds pretty fair.
Final approval by who? So you usually would delegate that to
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to delegate the
Yeah.
final approval because we've suggested some improvements. And rather than having to bring those improvements back to us, if staff can deal with them, then they can get on with the job.
For sure.
Yeah.
Nothing to that contact.
Of course, it's already got it.
So that would be my motion.
Yeah.
In the past, when we've seen these kinds of proposals, there have been details. There have been details around, having volunteers present, for example, in the washrooms to ensure that things are not happening there, that things shouldn't be. And I don't think that I read anything like that in this document, but I could be wrong because there is a heavy agenda to read through. So would that be something that the board would also like to ensure happens for this specific proposal, again, at the discretion of staff to work with the organizers to modify the document, but I feel like that's not an unreasonable thing to have in place, to have volunteers present in the washrooms, because those sorts of spaces are the spaces where things can happen that we don't necessarily want to have happen.
Don't recall if that was in there or not myself, maybe, but if not, we'll certainly ensure that it is.
I say constant monitoring of the entry to the bathrooms. So that's
Just the-
that's different than.
It's different than
Yeah.
being, like, I think in the past, they've done it as like a person that's there to like refresh the. Keep it nice and tidy, but also just being there kind of stops anything that might happen
Mhm.
in a prom bathroom area. And, it serves two purposes, like keep everything fresh and tidy, have all your little things that you might want to have to freshen up and don't do anything else.
That being said, I think maybe we can somehow capture that in as part of the motion, like, address the concerns raised by.
I completely agree with Celeste, if I may. Madam Chair. But I think the staff has heard the discussion and we can rely on staff
Okay.
to make sure that those provisions are in the final document.
So again, now I'm looking at the motion because Archie has it in there now. It says, and I don't think it's correct, that the Board of Education approved Whistler secondaries, and I think it should say dry grad plan.
Yeah, probably.
As presented, contingent on the final approval by the district and school staff.
Yep.
Okay. I think that captures it. You're good with that?
Yeah.
So moved by Rick. Second by Cynthia. Any further discussion? Celeste?
Can a copy of the revised document be just circulated so that we can have seen it at some point, so that for future iterations, we know what a particular plan looks like, and we can remember and perfect other plans into the future. Okay, thanks.
So seeing nothing else, then all those in favor? It's carried, and someone can notify Whistler Secondary? Perfect. Okay, so then that brings us to our student staff presentations, and it looks like it's a staff one. Chris, your year ahead presentation.
All right, well, first of all, thank you to everybody that's joined us tonight because the district has made up an incredible group of leaders, and some of those leaders are with us this evening to share part of the year ahead. So I'm going to begin, but then I'll be turning it over to others to take us to the end. I think Archie's about to get it up on the screen, and we'll just ask for next slide as we go through. And just to remind folks, last year when we did our year in review, we decided that we would include the ministry outcomes as well, their priorities, and then circle back to how they did, and then how we do in response to those, because we're really moving on a system towards transparency and really towards alignment, so that the ministry plan is the overarching umbrella, and of course our fabulous strategic plan or district plan provides a framework for how we work in our district, and that's buttressed by and supported by our yearly plans and our school plan. So just in the spirit of that alignment, I'm going to take you through the ministry priorities and then ours. And I think I already spoke to begin, so I want to reiterate that it's the Ministry of Education and Child Care. And that's going to take me a long time to say correctly. So, next slide, please. So this next slide, I won't read everything, because folks can see it and it's being recorded. This is just a lovely snapshot of where we are as a province, and in terms of some demographics and other statistics. And I'll point out that our data is what is in the brackets in purple. So you get a sense of how we are in terms of the rest of the province. I will briefly though point out again a highlight of our district. We know we have lots more work to do, but our 6-year completion rates continue to lead the way in the province. And while for all of BC, for the first time, they exceeded 90%, which is fantastic. We were a part of that. We were at 95, and we are consistently in the high 90s for the last few years. And I would say the same for the Indigenous completion rates. The province celebrating the fact that they have the highest reported rate ever. But again, for us, we dig deeper, we reach higher. While this graduation rate is a little less than the previous year of 1920, at 85%, we're still outpacing the province. And I think I'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so this is just a quick overview of what's happened as Ministry of Education when we're combining two ministries, just to show that they have gone up by approximately 100% more workers. So from 408 people to 800 folks, 3 locations that have two ministers, and then all those other staff. So they're still in the process of combining the two ministries. And so we are working with them to provide what we can to do support as a system, also recognizing the time it will take for the two ministries to become that cohesive whole. But I know we're all very excited by this amount. Next slide, please. No. Yeah. Okay, so the ministry priorities, here it is. Back to the focus on teaching and learning. Hopefully, COVID is in the rearview mirror now, and we can get back to what we're really all about. And their main focus is foci this year is to remind folks that there will be the Indigenous focus graduation requirement using effect in 2024. So we'll be working this year a little more on that a little bit later. Cost assessment reporting is a priority. Differential assessments, and already it feels like we've just had a new curriculum come into play. K-12. Now they're looking at some renewal and perhaps some revision. So more to come on that. Next slide. Excellent. Okay. So there is a new reporting policy which will come into effect soon. There's materials we developed for us, new performance standards coming. And so we're all very excited to see what those look like, and we'll be keeping folks updated on that. Next slide. The assessments, this is the first year for the grade 12 literacy assessments, which provides that provincial overview of where kids stand in relation to literacy competencies. And the group that meets to take a look at these assessments to ensure they're meaningful, authentic, and really capturing the type of assessment information we need to help improve the system. They reconvened, there was a pause during COVID, so we can look for perhaps some changes to the assessment as we go forward. Next slide. All right, so major government priorities for the year: reconciliation, childcare, equity, anti-racism, mental health in schools. There's a slide for each of those to come. So next slide, please. All right, so I found this slide very powerful. So here it is, folks. One of the major reasons, right? We look here, we can see that our students of Indigenous ancestry continue to not graduate at the same rates over 6 years as non-Indigenous students. It's quite a shocking gap. This is something we've been working on for years in our district, of course, and we're all so very proud, but also it's about time that this becomes the provincial conversation. I'll point out the differences between the solid and the dashed lines. An adult dogwood, which is in the means students who do not graduate with the full dogwood graduation, but with an adult dogwood, which is based on 4 courses. It's not a complete dogwood, and it can again have an impact on other opportunities for post-secondary. So what this shows is provincially, when we take out students who did not have an adult dogwood, you can see the lower numbers in red for our students of Indigenous ancestry, which means we're graduating as a province too many students on the limited adult dogwood. Caveat though is for some students, getting that adult dogwood is something to be proud of, because at that moment in time, it was, you know, the best that a system, I'm going to say that perhaps let them down, was able to accomplish. So there are times when the adult dogwood is something that we need students towards, but it is not, and should never be the plan for any student, really. But the point of the slide is to show just the difference of both types of graduations between Indigenous and non-Indigenous. The next slide shows where we are. So again, the top purple is non-Indigenous completion, which is right near 100%. So if you are a student of non-Indigenous ancestry in our district, you have a pretty darn high chance of graduating within 6 years. And if you take out the students with the adult dogwood, it's still pretty close. But where we see our work is in the blue. So just like the province, we also have a substantial number of students of Indigenous ancestry graduating with the adult dogwood rather than the full dogwood diploma. And so that is work that we are continually working on. Yes, it's great to be outpacing the province, but it just shows that while we have lots to be proud of, we still have a lot more to do. Next slide. All right, so this is just a quick slide about the Indigenous focused strategy experiment I spoke to earlier, and really heard to hear that Indigenous education is also working with us to ensure there's lots of opportunities for our fabulous teachers to be able to provide the courses for the students. And we will be working on that this year in terms of what we would like to offer for the Black requirement. And of course, we'll be speaking with our partner groups and our students, because their voice is important. Next slide. Right, so childcare. So as we know, we are engaged right now in a project initiative to increase the number of childcare before and after school spaces in our schools. Provincially, this is the investment shown that they're putting their money where their mouth is. So we look forward to more support in providing this service for our families who recognize the need. Next slide. And finally, as we come out of COVID, we know there's been the announcements of funding to districts to help with costs associated with inflation, mainly focused on food security, access to field trips, costume supplies, etc. A big focus provincially on mental health in schools. We are engaged in writing grants, as we always do, to get more support. We'll talk a little bit about compassionate leadership a little bit later. And finally, we are really awaiting the provincial K-12 anti-racism action plan. Speak a little bit later about our anti-racism policy development as well. Next slide. Excellent. So that takes us to our plan ahead. So I hope you see alignments, not just between our education plan, but the ministry plan, because I believe we are aligned. But I want to just remind everyone what our common goal is. This is the vision statement. This is what we believe. This is what we strive for each and every day. And that's a collective effort, no matter what your role is in the school district. Next slide. All right, so we are in the 4th year of our refresh strategic plan. So just a reminder to folks that each year we do provide the year-end report. The last 2 years, we have additional requirement from Mission Education, the FESL, the Framework for Enhancing Student Learning Report, which we'll speak to a little bit later. But this is just a visual for everyone in the public to show where we're at. And who would have thought that in 2 years we'll be talking about the next strategic plan. Next slide. All right, so I wanted to really make it clear what we're about. So we have a fantastic plan. It's founded on history and doing understand. It's the highlight. I'm going to just say it from the refresh that came out. This ironclad foundational belief. The inclusion is a right, diversity is a strength, and personalization is the way forward. It's our work out, as is the focus on mental health and well-being for all. So our students, our staff, our communities, and finally, that ongoing commitment to truth and reconciliation. Next slide. Okay, so finally, I wanted to include this image, this thought. It's becoming the theme for the year, and that's again back to that collective call to action for all of us, right? It's that belief that everyone can be a leader in their school, everyone has something to contribute, and we do that better when we work together. We work in collaboration, we work in consultation, we work with that shared purpose, what we say we're about. And this is something I hope you see throughout, not just the slide deck tonight, but throughout the year as we work together to make our lives better for our children. Next slide. And I am going to give a shout out again to Shaw Williams, spoken language support worker at Salmon School, who shared with me, with us at a DCSSA event in the summer, this lovely Squamish phrase, sway, which means we lift each other up. And really reminding that we're the people to do the work that needs to be done. And we do that with humility, we do that with patience, with compassion, and we support one another on the journey. So I wanted to end with that before we get into each of the portfolio plans. I'm almost done talking. Next slide. There we go. So I think I was just gonna speak to this slide and pass it over. So Board of Education, as we know, this is the plan ahead. We'll continue with the hybrid in-person online meetings. We really recognize and appreciate the value that technology has given us. One silver lining out of COVID, perhaps the only one, was the big advance in ensuring more people can become engaged and involved by going online. So really excited to see that. And I think we've arrived at a good place. There's no no bad feedback from the mics this time. I think we've got it down. Big thank you to Archie and the rest of the team for getting us going on that. Trustee elections, we spoke about coming up. Once we have our new board, we're excited to provide opportunities for orientation. And then you will hold us to account for our board plan, for CESL, and all the other wonderful things that governance covers. We have 3 new policies. We really hope to get in front of you this year and up in public. And as part of our board policy review cycle, it is time for the 600 series, which are all educational programs. And then finally, with the new board, by the end of the year, we're getting close to a board evaluation growth plan. So that's the work ahead for the board. Just a snapshot, just to highlight. Public, it's a lot more than that. They certainly do a lot more, but those are the highlights of the board. And now I'm going to turn it over to.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Yes.
Just to go back to your trustee elections piece. I just want to thank we have three trustees who are not seeking re-election. And I just want to thank Rick and Ian and Dave for all the years of service to the district. I believe all 3 of you spent your careers here in the schools and then into the governance role. So you will be missed, and your teachings or continue on in the rest of us. So thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to now pass it over to Superintendent Paul Lorette, who's going to take us through the education plan.
Yeah, okay, so thanks, Chris. And you know, this is going to be super quick, not because we don't have a really robust plan, but Chris actually talked about quite a few of these points in the ministry part. So I think it's a really great example of how, you know, the work of the ministry, you mentioned the alignment. So, you know, the focus that we've identified here is really well aligned with many of the items that you highlighted in the ministry. And also just to say that I know our senior team is, the entire leadership team is really excited about the work ahead. You know, we've had some things over the last few years that have been tricky, and we're really looking forward to just getting back to it. And so I'm just going to start first with the FESL, the framework for enhancing student learning. The board has received a draft of that report, and that's kind of how we're starting out the year in terms of looking at some past data, identifying areas that we feel are strengths and areas that we feel need some additional attention. And I know that that is coming up later on the agenda. Chris spoke to this notion of mental health and well-being. And so I don't really need to say a lot more other than to say that it continues to be a very big focus for us in the district as we move forward. Our data shows us that numeracy continues to be an area that we know we need to strengthen. And so we have put into place over the last couple of years a number of initiatives, and we are just going to continue along the road of supporting those initiatives, primarily through professional learning. That's been one of the things that has been tricky for us. A lot of our professional learning structures count on release time, releasing teachers, put aside a lot of resources to do that. We believe in the power of professional learning. That is incredibly important for a system to grow and improve. So that's one of the things we're super excited about, is being able to sort of get back on track with really high quality professional learning experiences and opportunities. It's one of the things historically that we believe we've done quite well. The K-12 reporting order, that's ongoing work, and we're looking forward to hearing more from the ministry on that in the new year, some resources and things that will help us to better prepare for the order when it comes into play in September of 2023. New performance standards, those are the performance standards have been around for many, many years, and they assist teachers with high quality formative assessment. And they have been refreshed by the ministry, and we're very much looking forward to receiving the new performance standards in the areas of reading, numeracy, and writing. Professional learning, I mentioned before, this is really at the foundation of what we do to support our education plan. And a lot of that work is done through the ILT, it's done through work with outside providers, it's job embedded. And the notion of the online learning modules is just another option that we're looking at providing for our system, so that teachers and leaders can access quality professional learning modules when they would like to access them online and when it's most convenient. The career and life education, CLE, CLC, this has been ongoing work. You probably know as a board, we've made some tweaks this year. We made some adjustments to ensure that this part of our curriculum moves ahead in a way that really supports students and what they need to be successful and be connected, and to explore their options for post-graduation. And so we're really looking forward to seeing how that impacts this particular curricular area. We think that the small changes that have been made, that include moving, and that just means that students will stay with their same mentor teacher over the course of their 3 graduation years, rather than changing every year. The Indigenous folks grad requirement is something that's going to be implemented next school year. So this is really good news for the province and for the system as a whole. And Chris spoke to this as well. And then finally, Chris already spoke to this, and that's the ministry curriculum update process. And we're looking forward to learning more about how we can contribute and be part of that. That's all.
Thanks, Paul.
Very much. Next slide, and we're passing it on to Director of Instruction and Learning Services.
How do I do this? Do I have people get a microphone? Do I get a microphone? I mean, I know how to present this.
There you go.
Okay, hi everyone. I'll just speak to the slides really quick. I'm sure we'll be talking about some of these things ongoing throughout the year. Again, one of our focuses is always going to be on student-centered, individualized education plans. So having students be the author of those plans for the year. We've worked really closely with our DPAC Inclusion Committee on many things to implement. One of them is a little prep sheet prior to IEP meetings to kind of make things feel a little bit more comfortable for everybody, and focusing really on student strengths and what families think about their students as well, and what those strengths are. DPAC Inclusion Committee, I've mentioned a couple times already, we're continuing to work together. Student handbook, staff handbook, just continuing to, policies change, things change, the way we know about supporting our children change. So it's constantly getting updated. A big focus on student mental health and well-being. This is going to be part of the Mental Health in Schools Committee and the Mental Health in Schools framework provided by the Ministry of Education. So we did some really cool things last year. We're going to continue that work this year. Again, just supporting the development of an anti-ableism policy in any capacity that I can. And again, as always, this is all of our roles really. This falls under my slides, but with a continued focus on equity and inclusion for the students in the school district and staff as well. And
Excellent. Pass it on over to District Principal of Beach Education. Karen LaRochelle.
Hello, everyone. So as you know, there are many other things on this list, but we're highlighting these four at the time. Equity Scan continues into the community engagement focus that had been slowed down by COVID previously. We managed to have one event in the north, one event in the south last year, and we will continue with community engagement this year to come up with writing our action plan together. Secondly, decolonizing numeracy is a continuing project that is largely successful in some of the pilot schools that we have been working with. And that continues on this year. Again, success rates that we see from the years we have already done and from year to year. So it's very good news there. And now the signing of the Lee-Watt Local Education Agreement was a huge event for us in the recent past, but now this is the year where we get to implement it down to the details. And so that's a big year coming up for implementation. And lastly, the development of an elders, or I'd also like to call it knowledge keepers in residence program, and potentially policy. That's something that we can discuss. Mainly and broadening it likely to knowledge keepers so that it is inclusive of a lot of different people who have many gifts they can share with students and staff in the schools. So that also it helps us not to always be calling upon the same people. It also helps build the relationship in the schools, making school a comfortable place for elders to come to. And a lot of work to be done there, but to do the writing of that program together, also giving educators a lot of tips and information on how to go about doing that. So that is in the works this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Bill, I think you've got the next 2 slides for you.
Okay, so as we shifted midway through last year, we've moved back to the communicable disease plan. If you want to see the old COVID plans, those are archived on the website. But again, we will be continuing to take all our guidance from and work with Vancouver Coastal Health. We've already had meetings with our medical health officers about how to proceed. Clearly, things like hand hygiene and health checks and staying at home when you're sick are still very much important. I think that one of the biggest pieces of advice they're giving us for this year, especially for children, is to get your flu vaccine for this upcoming flu season. More information from that will come out, and they will also be providing us with letters that principals send home like they do every year about anything from immunizations to how they can support us in schools. But communicable disease plans as a whole are updated and posted on our website and all of our school websites as well. And that is that.
Right, you're next for learning services, and we'll do a pause for
Early learning. You know, in future early learning subject matters will be guided by Heather Andrusoff, our new district vice principal of early learning and childcare. We got 3 years worth of funding from the federal government for this role and hired a really exceptional educator and leader, and we're really excited to be working alongside her. She's already getting deep involved in a lot of the programs we have going on. A really big push to kind of re-energize the early learning framework, which goes from ages 0 to 8. We're going to continue to reach out to our community partners to assess childcare needs, whether it's school age or non-school age, and finding great ways to partner with them. We are continuing the rollout of our early literacy essential skills profile, what we call the ELP. It's one of our really important screeners for vulnerability with students, but also it's a really important tool for our classroom teachers to know where their kids are in literacy and how we can support them. And there's lots of supports that come along with that. It's a really wonderful tool. Again, continuing to work with community partnerships from Sea to Sky Community Services or Kids on the Go to make sure that our Strong Start programs are up and running, our after school care programs are working well. Seamless Day pilot program at Brackendale. big shout out to Karen Sanger and Sarah Webb and Casey Reed and Sukhvinder Kular, who are all doing some really heavy lifting at rolling out a pilot program there. I think at this point in time, we are currently supporting, I'm going to say 14 families with before and after school care during this project. So that's really good work. And we're going to continue partnerships with West Vancouver and the Sunshine Coast on this program called Changing Results for Young Children. And it's a great way for networking, provincial networking, and getting to know best practices for supporting students in the early years. And then a big shout out to Nolan Cox and his work with SC46 on creating a dual credit partnership with Northern Lights for ECE, which I believe we have 4 seats in, and we'll be telling you more details about that as it gets up and running this year. Thank you.
Bill, you can pass it over to, oh, that's the one. There we go. All right, thank you very much. So now it's Director of Instruction at the University.
Okay, like Phil said, this is work that we're all involved in, but I do have a portfolio for EDI. And some of the things that I'll be overseeing and working on are listed here. So the first one is awareness initiatives. And although our schools do have diversity clubs and multicultural clubs, it's not consistent. So we're going to work on just making sure that we have a consistent awareness piece in terms of celebrating other cultures and what we would call their cultural holidays. And so we're looking at possibly putting those on our website and then ensuring that schools are celebrating those in the ways that they see fit. The second one is we're also going to be looking at hiring Bacau Consulting. And this is a Lower Mainland consulting group, which works with a variety of different districts, and they already are working with a variety of different districts. And just working with us in terms of what's going on in our schools for our students, for our adults, and then how can we support them so that they're having equitable experiences in our buildings. And so we're just starting that. It is multifaceted. So there is training for staff. There will be information gathering through storytelling from our students and our adults, and then also professional development opportunities. And then the third one, we started work on policy development with our district student council last year on both anti-racism and anti-ableism. But as Chris said, the ministry is doing a great deal of work on this as well. And so we're waiting to align our policies with what the ministry is going to be sharing out.
Very much. Next, Nolan Fox, who is joining us via Zoom, our Principal of Technology and Innovation.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Good evening. Just a few highlights with regards to our 2022-25 technology plan. These include continued support for learning through our educational technologies and our applications. We're looking at a renewed privacy framework to support new privacy legislation in the province. Super excited about our digital portfolio framework that's evolving to meet upcoming ministry reporting requirements, as well as our SD48 education plan. And lastly, improvements to our management of all the devices in our district. With regards to implementation of a consistent digital platform for portfolios, we're continuing our work with schools to establish consistency in the portfolio platforms and growing the culture of archiving, learning, and self-reflection of the core competencies through teacher activities and projects and assignments. And finally, continued support of Pathways to Learning and Technology strand. This includes our continued support of online and hybrid learning opportunities for our students, supporting our student and teacher device allocations, and lastly, the development of our resources to support teachers in learning about educational technologies and resources by providing training opportunities for those teachers. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cox. And now I'm going to call upon our Director of Operations, Ian Kirby.
we've got a few, exciting projects moving forward this year, and with the capital planning, communication piece and implementation of the, capital boundary changes that are coming. We'll continue communicating with the stakeholders and the two schools that are involved with, that change or would be most effective by the change. For everyone, this is, minor change in the northern ethnic boundaries to both Squamish Elementary and Malcolm. And we've been getting message out consistently for many years now, and we will continue pushing the message out this year as the change becomes effective in for enrollment in September 2023. And then further that we still are building into our capital planning for a major expansion project at House Secondary. So we've got a very detailed, comprehensive plan in our capital plan for this year that includes transition a change in the middle school grade. So from 7th to 9th to 6th grade. So we will continue with that communication piece with community partners as well. Our construction project is the house is complete. We have the keys in hand. We're just waiting for the final approval from the Ministry of Education and Childcare for the final subdivision. So that's in the works, and we anticipate that to be 6 or 7 weeks away. And then we transferred the post door school last to Little Nation. This is really exciting. This is super close. We're still shooting for September 30th for final transfer. The transfer agreements are with both parties legally, and we both come to draft agreements that everyone can agree with. And so it's super close to having that finalized. Student transportation system. So we're always working on refining and finding more efficient ways to continue the excellent transportation we have for our children in the district. So we do have the student RFID system that was fully rolled out this year. It was out in Whistler and Pemberton last year, and then Squamish, which was rolled out this year. So we're working on a few bugs with the system, but we know we'll have it refined next year. We're also looking at ways to make our fleet leaner, and that's both the yellow fleet, the school buses, as well as the white fleet. So we've been looking at opportunities for fuel switching with the buses, whether natural gas or propane makes sense for running some of our fleet. We're continuing to work with BC Hydro on the feasibility of electrification of our fleet, and where it would make sense to have charging infrastructure. There's still some challenges with that. Electric buses don't do all that well with the snow melt material which turns out on the street. So the technology is still evolving. And then for our emergency preparedness, we continue to work with tweaking the multi-hazard response plans we have in place currently. We require annual updates as people change in each facility. We have a partnership currently with the RMOW with their emergency plan committee, and we anticipate a similar partnership with the Squamish starting this year. So with that, we're also looking at sourcing some materials to help staff and incident command personnel understand what to do in the event of an emergency, looking at simple graphics or flip charts for the schools to have on hand, so that you know, having gone through a really quick binder to look at, you know, what do I go with the earthquake, and flip to page 52. We have flip charts that really help out in that the calm that are during the emergency. So we're working on sourcing those out and on easy to find these days. And then the final piece of the emergency preparedness, we resubscribe to an online version of our documents, of our plans on our phones. And so, it also has a very simple, what to do in the event section for that. And we're hoping to roll the training out for that this fall. We had tried to do that, but it's delayed plus the COVID, so we're hoping to be able to have the incident command people on each site, the key personnel on each site training on using the app. And that should also help with understanding what doing the emergency.
Thank you very much. I'm going to pass it over to our secretary. This is some financials.
Thank you. So the first item on here is the funding model review. So for the 2022-23 school year, the current funding model will remain the same. And we await information from the ministry as to any changes in the future years. The next item is enhancing business support systems. So this year we will be implementing some new software modules. And specifically that's for onboarding staff and employee expense claims. So HR and finance are going to be leading these projects. It will affect every single employee as we're moving to online entry and moving away from manual processes. So HR and finance are very excited about the opportunity to modernize these processes. It's going to be a big challenge, but we're excited about it. And then the next piece is the financial statement discussion and analysis. So earlier today, in our finance committee meeting, we provided an overview of the new ministry requirement that requires all school districts to put in place the financial statement discussion and analysis document. It's due to the ministry September 29th and has to be approved by the board. So the finance committee approved it today. And I encourage the public to watch the finance committee meeting if they are interested in seeing what that is. It's recorded on our website. And then the last item is the privacy management office. So there's a new legislative requirement in effect that each school district must have a privacy management office. That this responsibility falls under the secretary treasurer myself. And I do get a lot of support from the IT department as well as others in the district. One of the other legislative requirements as a result of this is that we're also required to do a privacy impact assessment on every single application. So that's for all of the devices that we have, computers, iPads, Chromebooks, everything. IT is taking on the majority of this work. It's a huge project.
Wow. No kidding.
Yes. So that is it for my slide.
Thank you very much. We are nearing the home stretch, folks, so glad you're all still with us. I believe that all of them speak to my presentation because our principal, Deja Rowley, is actually engaged in a welcoming new parents to my activity as we speak.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm not going to be able to give as much detail as things will be able to, but you might recall last year, I believe the National Strategic Plan was shared with the board. And so that work is continuing along, supporting English language learners. And of course, having that financial responsibility, ongoing monitoring of program from a business point of view. And an ongoing challenge has certainly been increasing homestays, which is one of the major challenges of the department. But that has been going fairly well, and that's a positive story for sure. The team has really done a lot of work, and so that's going. And then ongoing work of opportunities to support the students when they're here with expanded learning opportunities, and looking to get back to supporting teacher mobility, which involves providing teachers here the opportunities to do exchanges and travel to other countries and learn more about education systems in other places. I had a chance to do that a few years ago, and it was really an amazing experience. So we're looking forward to providing that opportunity for more of our folks, and hopefully some of our students as well.
Thank you very much. I'm going to do my best to communicate to the media for our communications officer, Jennifer Morris, who can be with us this evening. She has many roles in the district. One of them, of course, is to support public relations committees. Excited to get that going again. And she's very excited to be launching soon the new public engagement platform SD40NX, which will provide hopefully seamless and user-friendly web-based portal and platform for communicating out plans that we have, including timelines for engagement, an opportunity for moderated discussions, and really a place to keep all public engagement in one place and a real easy to understand and easy to access platform. So we really hope that increases the engagement of our folks across the district. And she's also worked on a repository, so sort of an archive for our district and school-based leadership teams to grab whatever they need for sending out important messages to parents, everything from facts and universal precautions to a new Digino section. We recently put that on the web around why our flags continue to be at half-mast in support of truth and reconciliation. And looking forward to updating all staff directories for, again, parental access to teachers and principals, as well as a real exciting initiative around building some alumni pages for opportunities for graduates of our amazing district to continue to interact with each other, opportunities for fundraising, mentoring, etc. And I'll just give a shout out to Whistler parent Shona Hardy, who really helped lead this initiative and working what we could do. And then we discovered that our new web platform that we use for our district website had an alumni capability we didn't even know about. So we're looking forward to launching that soon. And finally, for our staff, really want to ensure that each and every staff member feels that they have a staff portal website where they can find the information that they need when they need it in the, again, most efficient way possible. And just to any staff listening, always looking forward to your input in the ways that we can make the portal better because it's designed for you. And that takes us to second-ish last slide. And I guess what I wanted to end was to thank everyone in the room for contributing and online for their contributions. But to know that as a team, next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I had to flip it around. Look at that. This slide actually worked out really well after our director of human resources, Dave Duncan, speaks. Sorry, Mr. Duncan.
No worries, no worries. Thank you. Okay, so I'll just hit the highlights here. We are going to continue our work with Well at Work in terms of next steps. We engaged Well at Work in a workplace wellbeing foundational review with our stakeholders. So we will work on building our understanding and our shared responsibility for workplace wellbeing. And so we have some next steps coming up for that. So we're excited to get that going and back on track. In terms of recruitment and retention, we are going to resume a hybrid of in-person and virtual events. So one of the things I think Chris mentioned before is one of the benefits here is of the opportunity for virtual pieces. And certainly, you know, we are able to get at some recruiting without traveling across the country and still get to those events in person, which is nice as well. So it's nice to have the option to do both. Of course, we have bargaining still going on with our CUPE group, and that will be resuming in late September or early October. We will be refreshing our performance management of the CUPE performance appraisals for education assistants, clerical trades, etc. And we'll be working with our supervisors and the union on that. And then, as Danielle mentioned, certainly our quest to enhance our support systems runs through efficiencies with our employee access to Retrieve and just tightening up processes and automating things that allow us to hopefully get rid of paper as much as possible. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Actually, it's a beautiful segue to the next slide, and I missed you because as a district, you know, when we do make mistakes, and we will, so I want to share this. This is a fun slide. And if I'm not sure if you're watching tonight, but we gifted the Revelstoke School District with a new superintendent, that was a of course.
Right.
And this is actually, wasn't her doing, not during her time, but this was an error that was made in Revelstoke, in the new district, and it was shared with us in the summertime. So the point, next slide, please. Perfect. Is that we know any mistakes, but we really, I really appreciated this quote from Maya Angelou. So we will commit that we'll do the best we can with paraphrase until we know better, and then when we know better, we will do that. With that, thank everyone for their patience and time. I think it's important to spend the time to go through the year ahead, and you will keep us accountable to this when we do the year review as well. So thank you very much. Good questions.
Wow.
No, it's fantastic. Okay. Just double checking. I think we had someone from Whistler Secondary join us for a few minutes, but it's gone again. So we will get in touch. Well, you will get in touch with them. So that brings us to item 6, which are trustee items. Don't think we have anything there. So then we have our board committees. So the committee of the whole met earlier today. Primarily, we were talking about our work plan, our calendar as we move forward, and the schedule for our school learning plan and employee recognition lunches. So it's mostly related to work of the trustees and the board. And then we had a debrief on some board training that we took in June, the ombudsperson education session debrief. So we reviewed that and went over what our thoughts were. So that was the committee of the whole. Don't know, I think there was anything. Oh, there's a set of minutes there for a recommendation.
You want that motion?
Yes, please.
The minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held on June 8, 2022 be accepted.
Thank you, Rick. Second by Ian. All those in favor? Thank you. Policy met today as well, and we, I think Danielle mentioned it earlier, we approved our financial statements for the year ended June 30th. I think. Oh, it's policy, wrong one, sorry. Policy did not meet today. But there are a set of minutes there. Someone prepared to make that?
At the minutes, of the policy committee meeting held on June 8, 2022 be accepted.
Thanks, Rick. Second by Cynthia. All those in favor? Carry. Now, back to finance. So finance met earlier today. We had a presentation of the financial statements, and the auditors were also in attendance. So thank you to Danielle and Elena for all their hard work on that. We passed several motions, including our capital plans approval. Thank you, Ian. And I think that was it for finance, with the exception of there are some minutes.
That the minutes of the finance committee meeting held on June 8, 2022 be accepted.
Thanks, Rick. Second by Ian. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Brings us to Indigenous Education Council. I am not sure if we have dates set at this point, but we have not met for a bit. So what's our next meeting? Do you have that offhand, Karen? I couldn't find it. Oh, Well, that's all right. We'll carry on. So there's nothing to report on Indigenous education at this point. Anything to report on public relations? Okay, thank you, Cynthia. Early Learning Committee, is that you as well? Okay, thank you. So then that brings us to number 8, our general. There is nothing under business arising. So our information items, we will get to our enrollment update, and that's you, Paul.
Okay. Thank you, Archie. So what this is, just for the information of the trustees, is a very preliminary approximate update. We don't have final numbers yet. What we'll do is we'll do an update for you in October with their actual September 30th numbers, where we go through community by community and do a very detailed update. This is just a really preliminary update to kind of give you a sense of where we're at in relation to our predictions for this year. So go ahead to the next slide, please. So we projected very conservatively an enrollment K-12, and this is head count of 4,900 students. Our best information is that we have approximately 5,140 at this time. So this is an increase of just over 200 students from our preliminary enrollment projection, enrollment projections. So that's positive news for us. It's certainly better than going down. But we did project very conservatively, and our projection is actually less than what our actual student population was last school year. So when we compare this 5,139 with what our September 30th numbers were last year, it's probably pretty close to what we had last year. The next slide, please. So just to break this down a little bit for you, we saw a reduction in K-6 by just under 30 students from what we projected. The next slide, please. But where the growth happened was both at the middle school level and at the high school level. So we saw some growth here. And again, this is approximate. Numbers will still change between now and the end of the month. Increase of about 80 students. And now the next slide shows grades 10 to 12. And there's a much bigger bump there, an increase of about 167 students from our projections. I think what we're seeing here is that large group of elementary students that we saw a number of years ago are starting to move up through the system, and so we're seeing that reflected in the numbers. But then the numbers are sort of starting to stabilize and maybe reduce a little bit at the elementary level. So that is that's the update.
Thank you. Celeste, do you have a question?
Just a quick one. Does that include international students or just?
That includes international students.
That didn't include it.
That did,
So
yes.
part of it could be at the high school level. Maybe more than we were expecting.
That's a really good question. I have to go back because I'm second guessing myself now if it included them or not.
It's okay, Paul.
I think it did.
Okay,
But thank you for asking that. Yeah. That's
we'll see at the next meeting. We'll have a better
That's
look
right.
at all of the.
Yeah, I'll have a complete breakdown for you.
Thank you.
That's great, thank you. Any further questions, comments? Great, and then Paul, you're still up. That brings us to Blackwater Creek Elementary.
Yeah, thanks. And okay, so Blackwater Creek Elementary. So we're embarking on an enrollment review this year at the school. There was quite a bump in enrollment over the last couple of years, primarily I think due to COVID and families' desire to have their students sort of in the smaller school closer to home. What we're finding is that it's a tricky situation for the school to support a large number of students because it's a very small building. And so what we need to do is review what that's looking like at the school. So our plan is later in the fall, in November, we will be holding a public meeting in the community, likely at the school itself, inviting parents and any members of the public who may have young children who potentially will be attending the school in the future. And we're going to provide some information around sort of the historic enrollment story, what it's looked like in the past, what some of the projections are for the future for enrollment, different grade levels, provide some options for what the future configuration of the school could look like to the community, and then we would collect input from the community and staff on those options. With that information, we'll put together a report for the board that we'll bring forward in January, share that report with the board and provide some options and recommendations for moving forward. And that's our proposed process for
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to, are there any questions or comments on the review? I guess I just have one. So you say November, when will that date be secured?
we're going to set the date very soon.
Very soon? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So everyone
So
has
we'll
enough
have lots
advance warning.
lots of notice for that.
Awesome. So the next item up, we have the 2022-2023 school calendar development process. And Paul, there you go.
Okay, and Archie, do you have that calendar? Can you bring that up? Okay, so I believe this is part of the board's package. So
Yeah,
part of our process, because this is a really big deal. A lot of folks are really interested in this process. They have a lot of feelings about calendar and placement of dates and things like that. So we want to really be clear on what this process looks like. And so one of the first steps is that we actually review the timeline with the board in September. And so we are, and that's what we're doing today. So 3 years ago, we went through this process. And I'm not going to go through every line, describe every step, but I do want to just sort of break it down into two broad steps. The first step is the district level consultation process, which starts now and runs until the beginning of January. And during that time, we work with DPAC, we work with the unions, employee groups, and the public to gather feedback and provide a few options on things like spring break, placement of non-instructional days, those kinds of big parts of the school calendar. Once we do that through some sort of survey process, we put together draft calendars that have just those items: the spring break, placement of non-instructional days, the first day of school, last day of school. And then once the board has a chance to have a look at that in January, then we provide the schools with those sort of building block calendars, and then they fill in all the rest of the details, their bell schedules, any early dismissal days for things like parent-teacher conferences or collaboration time, that sort of thing. Once that is done and they ensure that they're meeting the minimum required instructional hours, then those draft calendars are presented to the parents for at least 30 days ahead of the March board meeting. At the March board meeting, those calendars come back to the board along with any input that they receive from the public, and they come back to the board for approval. Once they are approved, they go back out to the parents as the official school calendar, and they are also shared with the Ministry of Education. And this process is intended to provide us with 3 years of three calendars for the next 3 years. We do it all over again.
that was going to be my question. You just answered it. Anyone have any questions or comments? Okay. Good job. So next up, we have the Dartmouth. Is that how I say it? Yeah, school outdoor classroom, and it looks like Ian is up.
So here's an attachment that shows what the plan is. So there's been a lot of work that has on this project already. And it's an outdoor classroom project at Scott School. So the location in the field, the box of red. Aerial photo here. And it's just been bringing it towards attention that there will be another outdoor classroom project in one of our sites in the and so is got a very good design put together, the engineering and all of the work to enable them to go for the permit has been done. So it's just I think this is very important for us to be unaware that this project is going forward.
That's a nice looking structure.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
Ian, does that have to say Stark Industries at the top? Stark. Stark architecture. Oh, okay. Just yeah, not Stark. I was hoping everyone would.
I got it.
I did not. Gone.
I hope there's some students watching because they're really gonna pick up.
Yeah.
All right, any follow-up questions or anything? Hey, saying nothing. Thank you, Ian. Now we're on to Coast Mountain Outdoor School. Danielle, are you speaking to this?
Yeah, I don't have too much more of an update. Ian provided a bit of an update earlier. So I just want to remind the public that in the previous board meetings, we've been working for some time with the BC government and Lil Watts Nation and Act of Truth and Reconciliation to donate our land and buildings from the Coast Mountain Outdoor School, which we talked about earlier. And we're finalizing an agreement to donate the properties to Lil Watts. We're very close, as Ian mentioned, in the approved agreement, which I think will occur within the next couple of days. So we're just finalizing our wording details. And we have, as Ian had mentioned, actually it's September 29th is the tentative closing date, so that means that they would have possession of this property as of September 29th. So if everything goes well with the lawyers, the legal, all that stuff, that's the date we're looking for. So right now we don't have a date for ceremony because it's still waiting for them to be finalized, but hopefully we can announce the celebration ceremony for this same.
Oh, that's awesome. Did anyone have any questions? I have a comment. I just want to say that I think this conversation has been going on for 10, 12 years now of the lands and the potential with Lil Watts, and I just want to thank everyone for their hard work and making this happen. And also to let you know that the lands are being used already. They've been taking groups there. They've had overnight groups on site. There's people harvesting some of the herbs and such that grow and stuff. So I think it's just fantastic. So thank you. Good old Facebook. So next, and Danielle, looks like it's you again for the Pemberton House construction.
Yeah, so Ian also provided an update on that earlier. Just a few things to add for that. So we insured the property. We have insurance for 6 months on there for now. So it's insured through our school protection fund. And we officially received the keys from the builder a couple weeks ago. So that's really exciting. At the moment, the property is part of the secondary school grounds. So once we receive approval from the ministry and the village of Pemberton, this will allow the board to decide at a public board meeting how to proceed with the property. So we're hoping that will hopefully be ready for the next board meeting, but we will see how slow the ministry is. So we actually submitted it in June and we're still waiting, and I think about a month ago, in sort of 7 weeks. Oh, 8 weeks, okay, anyway, so it's a very long. Wait. That's it, it's for that.
Any questions, comments? No, see nothing. We're at the mercy of the ministry, right? Okay,
And
so.
we appreciate them very much.
So, especially with this next item.
Yes, that's right.
So that brings us to ministry funding announcement. Danielle and Phil have their names there.
Yeah, so I'll start and then let me pass it over to Phil in a bit. So I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but the ministry announced August 29th that there's going to be a one-time student family affordability fund. It's $60 million that's distributed across all the school districts in BC. So this fund is to support families affected by rising inflation costs. Our portion of it is $550,000 or $909. It's a pretty good chunk of change, so we're excited about this, to have this fund. The province has stipulated that it's to be used for expanding current meal programs we have in place, to ensure students have school supplies that they need, and also cover fees required for school activities such as field trips. And I'm gonna pass it over to Phil, so he can talk about what the plan is for this funds.
Yes, the plan is that we're gonna make a plan. It really starts with consultation. That's a really big part. So in the week since we've announced this, I've been in contact with our local food banks and setting up meetings with them. The Helping Hands here in Squamish, Whistler Community Center, and then the Pemberton Food Bank, because they do the majority of our meal providing. So trying to partner with them to figure out what the needs are. I think the biggest, most important thing we do in the consultation process is not just look for how do we spend the money, but where is the need to then determine how we spend the money. So I've been speaking with them. I've been working with a bunch of our principals, and I have more meetings to set up with them, a few more community meetings. I also had a meeting today with a bunch of other people in similar roles than me across the province, talking about how they were planning on spending the money and some of the initiatives that they were looking at and some of the financial factors they were looking into. That we're going to DPAC with this on Tuesday now. And then we're meeting with our principals as a whole group to talk about it next Thursday. Really kind of trying to get a really good grasp on what the needs are and then how we can meet those needs. And then we'll probably come up with a bunch of different types of solutions and continue to work with our stakeholders. Karen's been working with some of our ISWs and Indigenous groups to get their perspective on this as well. And then you'll likely see kind of a multi-pronged approach involving our community partners and our local schools to figure out who needs what. So it'll be an equitable solution. It's probably not going to be the same for every school or every community. And we're going to try to get as much input as we can, knowing that the primary focus is on food insecurity and also to alleviate the cost of school affordability. So, which is a thing that I think our schools do a tremendously good job at already. It is a big priority for us prior to this fund coming out. So students that can't afford field trips for whatever reason, we typically cover the cost. We cover the cost of, and so do our packs of school supplies, all of those things that they're asking us to do already. So a big tip of the hat to our packs and our principals and staff that do such a good job of this already. We're just going to try to refine it and make it better and hopefully do something really cool. So that is that. Any questions?
Good. Okay, I guess not. I did attend a board chairs meeting when this announcement, minister came and talked to us and let us know, but they were very clear that we're not allowed to share with anyone. So, because there were some chairs saying, well, what about my fellow trustees? And they're like, nope.
Had to wait for the public announcement.
That's right, exactly. Okay, so moving on from that, summer facilities project update. Ian?
That's me again.
Okay.
So
I think you got there it is, that's our, and see it says proposed, but this is, the update. So, this is the list that, was brought forward to the board, back for AFG project approval. And this is the status of where those projects are now. So, we tried to have a sort of do fewer, bigger projects this year, but we ended up doing a lot of small projects with a couple of larger ones thrown in. So the list is huge again this year. We've got 50 projects on this list, and that's not including the minor capital projects that we've worked on.
Right.
But we're sitting right now at about not quite 50% down. We've got 20 on the complete, 100% complete out of a project list of 50. We've got almost all in progress. And some things like the interior painting is ongoing year round, so that will always be that way. So we're getting really close to having everything wrapped up fairly soon this fall. Some of the larger AFG projects that are complete 100%, and one of them being the field repairs to Squamish Elementary, which improves drainage and actually creates a better sort of play area for kids that was flooded for much of the year, so we're hoping to see improvements in that when the wet weather comes. And then another large one was the refresh of the Pemberton portables, the 4 Pemberton secondary portables. They're all done 100%. Kids are in. Comfort level's amazing. We've got new cooling and heating units in there, and way better than we were. So we bought ourselves some time with that as Kevin continues to grow. So really excited about that. And then some of the minor capital projects. So we had 2 HVAC projects. One was through SEP and one was through CNCP. They're both sitting about 90% complete. We're waiting on commissioning. So that's just final consultants and engineers review and then startup of the new boiler systems.
Ian,
Yes.
could I ask you to explain to me what the differences are in your progress? So you have, well, complete, I have got that, but in progress, ongoing.
Yeah, so things like interior painting. So we fund one of our painters through the annual facilities grant. So we have 2 district painters. One is funded. We pay this as one of our operating costs. The other, we pay for that painter through our annual facilities grant. That's just the way that second painting position has been structured. So that's ongoing. Every year we allocate, we have to break out to different facilities, painting projects, and that matches the annual salary for that worker.
Okay.
So that's the ongoing. In progress are meetings of the projects that started. They are in progress and they're not quite complete.
Okay.
And then complete is so.
And then deferred is deferred to another year.
Is we're going to, those projects will be put off to the next cycle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's a bank fund?
Oh, yeah, that was gonna be one too.
So there's lots of different things out there, but it's not razor wire, it's not lasers. But if you're familiar with the anti-climbing screen on a section of fence at Spring Creek a few years ago, which helps to prevent kids from gaining access to the roof, and so it's excuse me, it's a piece of extruded metal that is impossible for anybody to get a finger hold in. So we call that an anti-climbing device. So it's designed such that there's no way to get a toe hold, a finger hold, grasp onto to gain access to somewhere. So what we did this year was at Don Ross, there was a large cooling unit that was part of last year's HVAC upgrade, and it was enclosed in a chain link fence, which was just like a thing to say, please climb onto the roof. So we did a very similar kind of anti-climbing surface on that enclosure, and so that's what I'm calling an anti-climbing device. Yeah, and then if there's no further on the AFG, I'll just go to minor capital where we're at.
Like I say, we have the two boiler plant upgrades, and those are 90% complete. The roofing projects are about 95% complete. That was at Garibaldi Highlands and House on Secondary. The Don Ross Pods rental is just amazing. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to go in there, but it was like beautiful today. Stopped in on the way down, and the kids are in. We had occupancy today. The kids were in class today. It's just came together amazingly, and it's one of these projects that, you know, at the beginning of the summer, we're always very optimistic that we're going to get the project done. We had some supply chain issues this year that were affecting the project completion as of now. And so it was just so great to see that come together and have the kids in classes today. So we're pretty happy about that one. It was a big one for us. And then we have the new accessible playground at Mount Elementary. So that it is in place. It is not open quite yet. We're waiting on the engineered ground surface, which is engineered chips for the ball zones on the playground, and that is one of the supply chain issues that we're dealing with now. It's the snapshot of where we're at.
That's wonderful. What did you do with your summer?
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, right? Yeah, you bet. So let's go ahead.
Well, we were hoping Friday this week, but Paul said today told me that I might be pushed for 2 more weeks. Yeah, it's really too bad. It's a beautiful new playground structure there. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at it, but it looks great. And it is accessible, so it's open for all children. But unfortunately, it's not quite open yet.
Once it's there.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Ian. Seeing any further questions, comments, so we can move on. So there's some attachments there for your review. Media report, field trips, doesn't look like there's any correspondence. So that brings us to items for discussion. Framework for enhancing student learning report. Chris and Paul on this.
Yeah, thank you. I'll begin and jump in anytime, Paul. So this is the second year of the new requirement from the Ministry of Education and Child Care. And I'm actually just going to read the blurb as to what it is, because I can't say it any better. So the framework for enhancing student learning is PRESSL, combines accountability with evidence-based decision-making to support a system-wide program of continuous improvement. So the PRESSL is a requirement for all 60 school districts, aligned with the Ministry of Education vision for the educated citizen. It brings a formalized approach to the planning and reporting expectations for all school districts, with a focus on improving student learning and enhancing the intellectual, social, and career development of all students in the K-12 public system. So as I said, this is our second iteration, and I just want to pause and say, long before I got here, that this district and many people around this table were involved in the education plan, Pathways to Learning, in 2012, I believe, was the first iteration. And back then, this district recognized the importance of every element of this framework, spoke to competencies before the province made that the way of the land. And so for us, it was not too much of a stretch to see how what we were already doing fits in nicely with the PRESSL framework. Last year was again the first year, and then as a district, I took part in a Cooperate group, a cohort, actually led by our former seconded superintendent, Lisa McCullough, with education, to take districts through to the next phase. And we were asked to join because of the work we had done in the past and the strength of our first framework. Feedback given, fantastic feedback from stakeholder representatives, stakeholder groups from across all employee groups, the ministry, superintendents, etc. Gave us some great feedback, as they did with other districts as they moved to the second iteration. And it was really about ensuring that it was as clear and concise as possible, to fit within a 10-page limit, to have images and graphics, because it is a public-facing document and really captures where we are in the fourth year, well, I should say third year, because it's always the year before, of our strategic plan, but aligned with those measures that the Ministry of Education and Child Care is looking for. So the folks who learned from last year, it was quite a text-heavy document. I hope you've had a chance to take a look. We added a lot more graphics, a lot more infographics for hopefully more accessibility for folks. And did some reordering of what was required by placing under the student performance data analysis section, special requirements first, supported then underneath by the district data that we use to provide more information and tell our story. So while this is a 10-page overview, we'll sort of noted the 30 pages of tables of additional data. We were allowed to do that as a appendix. And these data sets are what a sampling of the additional data sets that we have as part of our own student learning website that we've been maintaining over the past few years. So what we imagine happening is once this hopefully gets approved by you tonight, it goes to the ministry takes a look, and then we'll have the sector get even more feedback, and we assume there'll be some changes for next year. But again, we hope what provided is clear. We hope that it echoes what we talked about this evening with our year ahead. It is all about alignment, so you'll see in the plan for our year ahead, under the adjustments and adaptation section, which is about your year ahead. You just put a little more detail from the slide deck here, and this order of how it was organized is a template with the headings provided from the festival folks at the Ministry of Education and Child Care. So we've got let's just follow along to be as consistent as possible. So with that, I will again just point out there's lots of data, lots of things to go through for yourselves and for the public, but we did our best to try and take out a lot of the education lingo, make it a little more accessible to folks. So this will be an ongoing document, and next year we'll be reporting out on what we said we were working on in a year ahead, and of course those specific vessel outcomes, because we want to ensure that the tweaks and changes that we make to the services and strategy structures that we provide has the intended impact, which is to improve student outcomes.
Okay.
Good.
Did anyone have any questions or comments? Cynthia?
Just a super small comment, and maybe just for clarification for the people who are listening. In a lot of the data, the students are referred to as all resident students, and I wonder if we should just define that a little bit more clearly for people who are not quite understanding.
Thank you. That's a good point of clarification. So our resident students are students who are ordinarily resident in our district. It does not include international students. So when looking at numbers, you might think, gosh, I thought they said we had this many students. Why is the number less? No, thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia. Celeste?
So I love looking at every time we look at this data, I find it so interesting. This is a small comment, and I have a feeling that you probably both, you and Paul, have thought the same thing, but I just wanted to say it out loud because it's something that's crossed my mind every time we look at the data. So the tables further down in the document where we have some percentages coded in green, red, or yellow, there are cases where a percentage may be coded in green only because it is slightly larger than the provincial percentage, but it is still very, very low. And I just I find it bothersome that, saying like 59% of student or whatever, I can't really read this far away. But, to have that coded in green feels like that's an okay number, and it might not be an okay number. And so I just wonder if, as we're going through and looking at how to restructure these documents, it's hard when you have so many tables. I totally get why colors are used to help things pop, because then we know, yep, the district is above the provincial average, but it's still, the percentages that we're achieving are so beyond or so low that they're not acceptable still. So I wonder how we could depict that in a way that is different.
No, I'm not good. Look at different color combination. I will just say that in the description of that papers, we do make that point as well. You say, wow, we're X above the provincial average. We have to use the word more imperative to do better. It's absolutely, it's not acceptable. And I think we are always struck by that. And the other point I'll make, I think what's important too, is we also know that the data we get, especially when we're doing surveys and sort of qualitative measures, we're not sure always capture what this is happening with kids, because I know that some of our very committed staff out there are going to be reading this, and they work so hard on our competencies, and yet when we provide the measure that we have through student learning surveys, etc., it's shockingly low. And so we're constantly as a district talking about that. How can we better capture? Because when we have conversations with kids after the fact, well, they say, well, that's not what I meant. But no, I know those adults care about them. We're actually, I did a lot of collaborative work on inquiry this year.
Yeah.
So we're always looking to how we can get a better data set. That's feedback we provide to ministry as well, because they also determine in their festival outcomes what data set we're to use. So we spoke recently now, but there's now a 3-stage survey that UBC SFU with their learning partnership on released. And we've done the EDI, the early learning before, the middle years program, and now we're going to be doing the youth index, which is grade 11. So that will span the K to 11, and it's a made in BC approach. And we find when we actually look at that data, we actually get more encouraging results. So not in any way to try and mask or say, you don't want to look at for results. But I think that it's important that we always, and I know you mentioned this before too, that is very tricky sometimes, where it may not always be as objective as we think, and it's important to have multiple data sources to tell the story.
And absolutely question the instrument for sure, 100%.
So again, this is the second iteration, and we absolutely look forward to further ones, because we do believe it's an important document and it fits very well in our accountability to you, to our public, and just as a whole. So I'm excited for what this is going to become for our kids.
And Rebecca, if I
Yeah.
may, one more thing, thank you for the work put into this, because I know that it is a lot to put it together. So 100%, yeah, thank you. And just look forward to seeing future iterations. It'll just get better and better as you keep on revising.
It's great. Thanks, Celeste. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to add my thanks to those expressed by Celeste, because I too think it's just an incredibly valuable document. And, there's a new board coming, and this is the sort of material that a new board can grapple with very substantially as they consider, what is it, only 2 or 3 years from now, a new strategic plan, for instance. And so thanks for the great work, and congratulations to the provincial government for recognizing the need for districts to plan in this way across the province, not leave student achievement to accident, but make it strategic, and ensure that, like our district, every district has all of their functions aligned behind one succinct set of goals that relate to student achievement. So great for us, great for the province, actually, doing this.
Awesome, thank you. So that was under items for discussion, but it leads us straight to action items, and there is a motion there regarding the framework for enhanced student learning report. Anyone's prepared to make that?
I will. Are we on EA?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, that the Board of Education approves the 2021-2022 School District Number 48 Sea to Sky Framework for Enhancing Student Learning Report for submission to the Ministry of Education and Childcare.
Thanks, Rick. Second by Cynthia. All those in favor? And carried, and thanks again. Excellent work. Yes. Okay, so that brings us to the financial statement discussion and analysis. Will Elena be speaking to this?
I don't think there's anything to speak to because we went over this pretty fully in the finance committee meeting. So I would just say if anyone of the public is interested, to feel free to watch our finance meeting from earlier today.
Okay. That being said, then there's a motion or a recommendation.
I'll do, oh, you go ahead, Ian.
Board of Education approved the financial statement discussion and analysis document as presented.
Thank you, Ian.
Second.
Rick seconds. All those in favor? And carried. Danielle, would that be much the same for the 2021-2022 audited financial statements?
Yeah, so we're gonna let in the board finance meeting this morning, or sorry, earlier this afternoon. So we're welcome to watch the finance meeting.
That the Board of Education approved the audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2022 as presented.
Thanks, Rick. Second by Rachel. All those in favor? And that's carried. So we have the 2023-2024 minor capital plan approval.
Board of Education approved 2023-2024 minor capital plan as presented.
Okay. Oh, thanks. Thank you, Cynthia. I got lost on here. I was reading the wrong thing. All those in favor? And carried. So that brings us to E, the 2022-2023 amended minor capital plan approval.
That the Board of Education approve amendments to the 2022-2023 minor capital plan to include 3 replacement buses as discussed.
Thank you, Rick. Second by Cynthia. All those in favor? And carried. So that brings us to items to be brought out of camera. So these are items from our in-camera meeting earlier this afternoon. The first being the wellness vision statement that speaks to workplace well-being. So then there's, for your reference, it is just shown that the board approved the vision statement earlier today. And then that next item out of camera, again, for your reference. This is following discussions that have been ongoing from earlier this year. And discussions with the District of Squamish about the potential of some joint opportunities. And so we passed a motion that the board has interest to form a joint committee with the District of Squamish to explore options for collaboration on services and facilities. And we brought that out of camera. So we will be following up with connecting with the District of Squamish to see when or if we can strike this committee. Other than that, there are no bylaws. Any questions of clarification from the public? No. Okay, so with that, then declare that we've concluded the business of this agenda and we are now adjourned at 7:59. Thank you.
Everyone.